Hello students, welcome to SRIRAM IAS. Again, in the absence of Utkarsh, I am taking this Indian Express analysis. So another news are developing, news develop every day new news comes in. Now today Donald Trump has said something else about the Russian oil. Secondary tariff warning has been given. US tariff threat looms over purchase of the Russian oil. Now what has happened here? Till yesterday we were analyzing about some other stuff which was said by the US President, reciprocal tariffs, that he is going to impose some reciprocal tariffs on 2nd of April. Now tomorrow is 2nd of April, we will see what kind of reciprocal tariffs comes in, especially those countries which have trade deficit with the United States and they export a huge volume of products to the United States and benefit from it. Donald Trump wants to impose some kind of tariff on them, especially countries like China, who does this. So now the news has developed and Donald Trump has linked the peace talks with Ukraine to the trade. And it is saying that if Russia, in one or the other way, tries to stop the peace talk or the peace treaty, the peace deal which Donald Trump is going to strike with Ukraine, then there will be tariffs on the Russian oil. Now India, why this news is very important for us? India buys almost 30% of its oil requirement from Russia. 30%, can you imagine? There will be inflationary pressures, there will be so many things. India has to look towards several other countries for importing oil, and it has been a stance of India not to take oil from countries which are under sanction, such as Iran also, Venezuela also. India historically does not touch those countries which are under sanctions. So similarly, India's stance, and India, if it has to continue its stance, which India will, then India has to look elsewhere to import oil, but not from Russia. I hope you have understood this. And these secondary tariff can also be raised to sanctions if such a thing happened where Russia is trying to slow down the peace treaty, the peace deal with Ukraine. There is a deal which Donald Trump is trying to strike with Ukraine for so many reasons. Now, looking at this slide, what will be the impact on India? India may face 25 to 50% of the US tariffs. Why? Because India is importing oil from Russia. In order to stop importing from Russia, or Russia is benefiting a lot when it is selling the oil. So to teach a lesson to Russia, because it is hampering the peace deal, US is imposing tariffs on Russia and India buys Russian oil, and there can be an imposition of tariff of around 25 to 50%, which is going to be very expensive for India. So this is not a good news in a way. Then there will be pressures, inflationary pressures and increased import bills. That will be the another impact, a very huge impact. And if India continues to buy oil from Russia, despite of the tariffs, then maybe in the reciprocal tariffs which we have studied yesterday, India may not get concessions. This is another thing which we have to think about. There can be secondary sanctions. After secondary sanctions, there can be, after tariffs, there can be secondary sanctions as well. So this is the whole scenario. Now, what are India's alternative? Historically, these have been India's alternative. Now we were buying from Russia, and if we stop buying from Russia because of the tariffs and because of a threat of sanction, a secondary sanction which may follow after tariffs, India has to look towards Iraq, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. Usually India do not buy from Iran and Venezuela, as we have discussed, because of the sanction. Okay. A quick shift from Russian oil could be challenging but manageable if global supply remains stable. Now, if something happens in these countries or in this region where these countries are, West Asia, where these countries are located, then there is going to be problem. There is going to be problem related with inflation and the import bills. The prices of crude oil may go up अभी क्या करना है, अभी सिर्फ रशिया से हटके अपन को ऑयल यहाँ से खरीद लेना है, बट जो ऑयल यहाँ से आ रहा है वो स्टेबल होना चाहिए, लगातार आना चाहिए, कंसिस्टेंटली आना चाहिए. If that supply chain is maintained, then things will be okay. If there is a disturbance in the supply chain because of anything, there are 2 wars going on, there are so many diplomatic changes happening throughout the world, and because of anything, you know, those supply chains are disrupted, then there will be inflationary pressures, there will be, you know, increasing import bills because of oil. So this is something important for us to understand. Now we have already covered this first issue of fresh US tariff threats. We have another thing about freedom of speech in India. Now this is in news a lot, too important. And the third thing would be about Bangladesh, where the chief advisor of the government has gone to China, and he has made a statement saying that India's northeast is landlocked and we are the guardian of the region. So in a way it is a soft threat to India and India's sovereignty and India's dominance in the region, inviting China in that region by saying that India does not have much influence and Bangladesh is the guardian of that region, and China can come and invest in Bangladesh. Now that's the thing. So let's move forward and see what is there in the second topic, freedom of speech in India. Now 2 recent incidences have taken place. One about Pratapgarhi. He was a member of parliament, is a member of parliament of Rajya Sabha from Gujarat. A FIR was launched against him because he has posted a poem which was considered by police as inciting violence and disturbing on his Instagram account, and because of that reason a FIR was lodged against him. Now court have said a very important thing in this judgment, giving him bail. Court have said that dissent and criticism against any post, if too many people does not like it, so they dissent from it, or if too many people does not like it and starts to criticize that particular post, those are not the reasonable restriction on freedom of speech and expression. What are the reasonable restrictions on freedom of speech and expression? Sovereignty and integrity of India. By your speech, by your expression, the sovereignty of the country, the integrity of the country must not be hurt. Similarly, obscenity, your speech and expression must not be obscene. Okay, decency has to be maintained, morality has to be maintained. Your speech and your expression must not result in some kind of turmoil, means law and order problem, security problems. But if your work invites too much of criticism, that's another thing. Our country is very strong to take those criticism. India has a long history of literature and art being produced here, and recently it has been seen that the satirical comedies, especially the political satire, are not invited. They are of course invited by the public enjoy it a lot, but by the political establishment they do not like it. Remember Charlie Hebdo, which was one of the political satirical magazine based in Paris, which was attacked by terrorists. Those kind of things, they are very popular in Western countries, and the political establishment in Western countries is liberal enough to take the political satire. But in India, that's not the case. If some comedian comes up, and especially the person is doing the political satire, satirical comedy, then it becomes an issue against him. He will be charged with several sections of the criminal law, and there may be an arrest which could take place, and nobody is quite vocal on these things. Now this article tells that the government is doing all these things, but even the opposition is quiet. Opposition only speak when it sees the opportunity to gain the political mileage. When the criticism is against the opposition, they also do not take it in a positive light. So in a way, there is a hypocrisy seen in the stance of opposition as well. That is what the article says. Article also criticizes the court by saying that it does not take suo motu cognizance, especially in satirical comedy and these kind of issues. Also, it has criticized, the article has criticized the court because of the bulldozer justice. It says that it is not consistent with bringing down the bulldozer justice, because that's not the rule of law. That's not how justice should take place in the country. Why it is directed towards few only and not towards all. So those are the concerns. Let's see the slide. So freedom of speech, the first heading is that how freedom of speech is affected by the actions of the ruling party. Okay. Now what it does is it tries to silence the dissent and satire. That is the first thing. Instances of bulldozer justice and labeling of dissent of anti-national. So whoever dissents from the political view, the majority view, whoever dissents, whoever does not agree with it, okay, is termed as anti-national. So in one or the other way, this is sort of infringing upon the freedom of expression and speech of the person. So if I try to dissent with the majority view or the majority political view in the country, or the cultural or the religious view in the country, then I will be declared as anti-national. This is one thing which is sort of an attack on the freedom of speech and expression. And at the same time, about the satirical comedies, the satire, you know, the political satires, those people, those comedians have been attacked frequently. They are cartoonists like Asim Trivedi, or they are comedians like Kunal Kamra. They have been attacked, and there have been, you know, all kind of things going on. Some people speak in favor of these things and some people speak against these things. But in a way, if you see constitutionally speaking, reasonable restrictions, apart from reasonable restriction, because the reasonable restriction also has to be reasonable and logical, they must have some ground. Just on the name of restriction, you cannot restrict anything. Just because people don't like it or people criticize it, you cannot remove a post or struck down publication of a book or cut the parts of a movie. Okay, so it's important for us to understand what freedom of speech and expression means in its fullest extent, and what is the real meaning of reasonable restrictions. Criticism, that's not a reasonable restriction. If I have written a book and there are 100 people who are criticizing it and only one person who is in support of it, the book shall be published. The book shall not be, be struck down, or the publication of the book should be struck down just because it is criticized. Now, if the book is inciting violence, if the book is obscene, hurting the moral grounds of the society, the ethical grounds of the society, or it is creating some kind of law and order problem, inciting violence, affecting the unity and integrity and the sovereignty of the country, then the publication can be struck down, because those are the reasonable, the actual reasonable restrictions. But when it comes to criticism, that cannot be a reasonable restriction. I hope you understand this. And dissent has not been taken in a very positive manner by the ruling party, by the ruling government. Moving forward, it also says that parliament is being used as a platform to amplify the ruling party. So, quite offensive sort of article has been written in this newspaper. Then opposition MPs are often muted. This issue comes up when the opposition MPs claim, especially the leader of opposition, they claim that whenever they come up and speak in the Lok Sabha, the mic is muted. That is one of the thing. And speaker always says that I do not have any switch to on and off the mic on the stage. It is not me who is doing it. So this is a big debate, because Article 105, which gives freedom of speech and expression to member of parliaments, and Article 194 gives speech and expression to the member of Legislative Assembly. Now those articles are very wide, they do not actually have the reasonable restriction, and they give wide immunity to the member of parliament, to the public representative when they speak in parliament or legislative assemblies. It is required for them to speak in every matter without being affected by the criminal charges, because if they do not have the power to do so, then how will the country work? It is important. So when they vote in the committee, or when they vote in the parliament, when they speak in the parliament, when they speak in the committee, none of their actions, none of their speech is going to be taken as a very negative speech, and they will have the immunity from the criminal charges, from the charges against those speech and expression made, and there shall not be any reasonable restriction which can be stopping them from making those speeches. So this 105 article is very wide. So switching off the mic, 105 is even wider than our Article 19A, because on Article 19(1)A there are reasonable restriction, but there are no reasonable restriction on Article 105. So switching off the mic in one or the other way affects or curtails the freedom of speech of member of parliaments. This is a very important issue. So government does not scrutinize the things. That has been an allegation made on using its majority to undermine accountability and deliberation. Now, another important topic here, how freedom of speech is affected by actions of the opposition. Now, even if you see the opposition parties, such as these parties, they have their own history. When they are in power, or in the states where they are in power, they have their own history of opposing the political satire. They also do not like it. So opposition make a hue and cry when the ruling government at the center tries to struck down a political satire. But when that political satire or comedy or any kind of creative work, if it is bringing criticism to the opposition political party, they also do not take it in a positive light. So that's the whole idea, that hypocrisy is seen. Okay. And opposition party often withdraw from parliament. Now this is the thing, choosing protest outside rather than engaging in dialogue and accountability. This is a very important point. Parliament is made for engagement in dialogue and holding the government accountable. But if the member of parliament walks out and tries to make scene outside the parliament, then that's the problem. Outside the parliament, they also do not get the immunity given under Article 105. It is only given when the session is in progress and when you are speaking in the parliament, when you are in the premises of the parliament. So that's important for you to understand. There is a general decline in commitment to parliamentary democracy, even among opposition ranks, with few willing to take consistent stand on free speech. So it's not a very big thing, because it affects the opposition party also. If the opposition party in future comes into ruling party, then they are supposed to do the same thing, try to stop the political satire and other thing, because they have been doing. Whenever it is directed against them in the state governments where they have the government, established government, they do not take it in a positive light. Court has also been criticized in this article because there is a hesitation and delay from the court, and there is a lack of consistency and firmness in upholding the speech related rights. But again, speaking about court, it is one of the judges have said that press and the court has to come together to save the freedom of speech, and it is the court only which is in one or the other way bringing justice into the country, trying to stop the government from infringing upon the right of freedom of speech and expression. But the article says that court is hesitant, it delays in taking the suo motu cognizances, and it lacks consistency. Now moving on to another important article, India's northeast is landlocked. So Muhammad Yunus, the chief advisor to Bangladesh interim government, recently an event has taken place in Bangladesh. The established government of Sheikh Hasina was thrown out, and she was there was a coup. She maintained a very friendly relations with India, but she is no more the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, and all the relations India had with Bangladesh, now they are at stake because of the coming of another government, another person, Muhammad Yunus, who is not as much friendly as Sheikh Hasina was. So we have developed few routes. Now in order to move to the northeast, there is a chicken neck. Now that's a very sensitive area, and it's a very sensitive route, and that's the only way to approach the northeastern region of India. But India has tried to make alternative routes, sea and land routes, combined sea and land routes through Bangladesh because of a friendly government in Bangladesh. But coming of Muhammad Yunus, now this thing is in the spotlight, that those routes which are made by India may be in danger. And after this statement, this diplomatic statement, when Muhammad Yunus has reached China, and he has announced that India's northeast is landlocked and Bangladesh is the guardian of the region, and he is inviting the Chinese investment there, that affects India's interest a lot. That affects the India's diplomacy in the region and India's dominance in the region. So he suggested that this gives Bangladesh a strategic advantage and offers China a gateway to access the region, the Bay of Bengal region, promoting the idea of extension of Chinese economy. Yunus urged China to invest in Bangladesh. So he is saying manufacture goods and use country as a logistic and trade base. So that is what has been said by the Muhammad Yunus to China, that you can use our country as a logistic and trade base to reach Northeast India and beyond. Now that's a sort of soft threat in a way, we can say. Coming on to another slide, geopolitical implications for India because of this. So India has not officially reacted on the statement of Muhammad Yunus, and chicken neck, this is the thing in the northeast, it's a narrow and a strategically vulnerable corridor, and that was the reason why India was making an alternative, working on an alternative route to northeast through Bangladesh. And India has worked closely with Bangladesh to secure transit routes through Dhaka for economic and strategic access to the northeast. Yunus's remarks are seen as an attempt to Dhaka to leverage its geographical position. So Dhaka is trying to leverage its geographical position to do what? To add pressure on India. With the help of whom? With the help of China. So it's a important development. Now a BIMSTEC summit is going to come. Okay. Now this is another thing, that what is the Bangladesh's position with China. Bangladesh considers China as a good friend. Of course, China will be a good friend to Bangladesh because it can oppose the dominance of India in the region through Bangladesh. Balancing actor against New Delhi, that is also, he is projecting China as a balancing actor against India, and his statement suggests an effort to deepen Dhaka and Beijing cooperation, subtly challenging India's regional influence. So there has been no stance which is taken by India on this topic. Now Prime Minister of India is visiting Thailand for BIMSTEC summit, okay, on April 3rd and 4th, and Yunus has already met Chinese President Xi Jinping and has discussed greater collaborations, and he has requested a meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in this BIMSTEC meeting, in this BIMSTEC summit. India has not confirmed to his request yet, Now this news is going to develop. We will see what is going to come, whether India's diplomacy suggests the Prime Minister to meet the advisor of the interim government in Bangladesh or not, and if they meet, what is going to come out, what will be the impact of that meeting, that is still to see. So this was the news of today, news analysis of today, 3 very important topic about the US tariff, about the freedom of speech in the country, and the development with Bangladesh. Thank you very much for joining me in this session. Have a nice day and Jai Hind.